reading again for you from 1 Samuel chapter 17 and verse 54. That's right. Okay. 1 Samuel chapter 17, verse 54. And David took the head of the Philistine and brought it to Jerusalem. But he put his armor in his tent. 2 Samuel chapter 6, verses 14 and 15. And David danced before the Lord with all his might. And David was girded or clothed with a linen ephod, which was a priestly garment. So David and all the house of Israel brought up the ark of the Lord with shouting and with the sound of the trumpet. It's very tough to contain a spontaneous combustion of praise when an improbable victory is won. Now, David, wearing this ephod, was dancing with all his strength before the Lord. David had a long track record of dancing in highly charged moments. David was very outgoing when it came to his expression of worship and praise to God. Can I make just a side comment here? Could I encourage you to worship God like David worshiped God? Could I encourage you to at least act excited when you worship the Lord? And see, April is excited tonight because April has finally secured a job. So she did a little victory march over here when she told me about it right before service, because when God does something good for us, we always want to express that in a way that is emotional and expressive. That's a whole nother message, I realize that. But you can celebrate the victory when you know that it's God that's given you the improbable victory. Have you ever worshiped God continually for a victory that you received that really shouldn't have happened? Or it looked impossible for it to happen? This is where we find David. David is rejoicing because he has the armor of Goliath, and he also rejoices with this dancing with all of his might when the Ark of the Covenant came back to Jerusalem. David had a spoil of victory. The armor represented a spoil of victory. The Ark of the Covenant, which was their chief place of worship, their place that they pointed their worship towards, when it came back to Jerusalem, that was like the spoils of victory coming back in to Jerusalem, back to the place where all of this started. So what we need in our spiritual life is we need some spoils of victory. You need some life symbols in your life that shows that God has done great victories for you. If you don't have any spoils of victory, I would strongly encourage you as of tonight to try to get some victories, to try to find some victories in God so you'll have something to celebrate about. Now, I can't believe that there's anybody here, though, tonight that God hasn't given you at least one spoil of victory. Amen? I doubt if there's anybody here that's not had God come through for you at least once. Hallelujah. Life symbols crystallize. They have a way of crystallizing in your spirit, and they will change you forever. There are some victories that I'm worshiping God for tonight and thanking God for tonight that happened many years ago, but in my spirit, it's still fresh like it happened yesterday. One of the complaints that people have against Christians is they say that you seemingly lose your victory so quickly. But that doesn't happen at the Rock. That only happens across town. It doesn't happen here because God continually gives us victory. Do you know there were 60 people at our house Sunday for meet and greet? 60. That's something to rejoice about. And one of them was a Baptist preacher and a Baptist preacher's wife. And the Baptist preacher's wife has been coming here to the last 3 or 4 Sundays to this church. And she said she likes it so much here, she thinks she's just going to hang around. That's good. That's a victory. We can rejoice over that, can't we? And I told her Baptist husband, who came from his service in Campbell to our home, I said, if you need any help, I'll come over and help you. He didn't say no. I love it. I love what I do. I love what I do. So there's a guy who got a life symbol. I'm going to tell you his story because it's an incredible story. This guy's name is Dennis Waitley. He's a Christian author, a Christian speaker. This particular man was going to speak. He was supposed to speak in L.A. And so he was running late. He got to the airport in Chicago late. He literally ran through the terminal, ran up to the gate as the ticket agent is closing the door to the flight. He says to the agent, please open the gate. I'm a speaker. I have to be in L.A. The agent at the gate firmly said, no dice, no way. He then told her, it's very important that I get on that plane. I've got to get on that plane, Flight 191 on United to L.A. I've got to get on that flight. She stood firm. He started to get angry. But see, preachers don't get angry, do they? They do? He started to lose his temper. He started literally fuming at this gate agent to no avail. He was so angry that he turned around, walked to the ticket counter, stood in a 20-minute line, and got even angrier. Right before it was his turn to get to the ticket counter, there was an announcement that came over the intercom and said that Flight 191 United had just crashed after takeoff and there were no survivors. Dennis Waitley walked away from the counter, took his unvalidated ticket, took it to his office at his home, and pinned that ticket on his bulletin board to remind him of a life symbol, to remind him that he was still alive because a gate agent closed the door in his face and refused to let him get on, even though he persuaded her with much anger. Life is sacred. Life is special. And so to this man, that became his life symbol. Whenever he is discouraged now, he will look to his bulletin board. Whenever life overwhelms him, he will look to his bulletin board and he will see the unvalidated ticket for United Flight 191 from Chicago to Los Angeles. Do you have any life symbols? Do you have anything that God has done for you that has changed you indelibly? You should be thankful. And whenever you get discouraged and whenever you feel the press of life press down on you, point back to the cross, if nothing else, and say, because of Calvary, because of the cross, I have life. I am alive. Don't get discouraged and realize that you have no hope when God has given you a life symbol to look towards and to completely rely upon. A life symbol becomes an unforgettable reminder. An unforgettable reminder that life is a gift that should not be taken for granted. When I think about Calvary, and I think about the life that I'm going to have in heaven, it fills me with so much excitement. I can have a bad day, but I can think about Calvary and what God did for me at Calvary, and I get very, very excited. My life is a story. Your life is a story. It's a story that God is writing through the script of your life, through the script of my life. And I need to identify that the storyline is written by the author of my salvation and my life. Life symbols mark the incidences, the places where the plot thickens. Have you ever went through an amazing trial? Have you ever went through something where the bottom fell out? But see, that only happens to me. That doesn't happen to you faithful saints at the Rock. Huh? Huh? God is writing his story through your life. Isn't that exciting? And where the plot really thickens, when stuff really gets tough, those become life symbols. I'm here tonight only by the grace of God. Not by any good works that I have done. I am here tonight because of him. Him and him alone. That is why I am here. And so my life symbols reminds me that he is with me, and also it reveals who I am becoming. Through what I've been through already tells me what I am becoming. Also, it reminds me of where I've been, and it also reminds me of how I've got here. Wasn't easy getting here. Got some life symbols down the way that remind me of why and how I've gotten here. There are life symbols that change us, that do something to us. Anytime you see a turtle on a pole, you know what that tells us? Somebody helped get him there. Look at the way a turtle's made. Do you think he could climb that pole? No. Somebody actually put him there. How did he get there? Help. How are you going to get to the top of your game spiritually? The only way you're ever going to get there is if God helps you get there. There's not enough good in you. You're a good person, but there's not enough good in you to get you to where you want to be spiritually without the help of God placing you there. Have you ever felt the hands of God just reach into your spirit life and literally lift you above the problem? Have you ever felt the joy of getting on the top of the world? How do you think Mr. Turtle feels right there? He probably feels a little scared. But he probably realizes, man, this is a good view. There's a better view up there, I guarantee, than where he's used to living. If you're ever going to get there, if you're ever going to arrive, it's going to be God that's going to help you get to where you need to be. Do you know when David looked at the size of Goliath's armor? You know what I think he thought? The only way I could ever get this armor is if God helped me get this armor. The only way you'll ever have a spiritual victory is when God helps get you to the top. Let's talk about memory for just a second, because memory is so important. The length of memory depends on the strength of emotion tied to the event. The stronger the emotion, the longer and stronger the memory. Almost all of your long-term memories are associated with intense emotion, positive or negative. And that's just the way God has wired us. Do you know that 99% of our past experiences are quickly forgotten? 99% of our experiences are quickly forgotten because they are barely felt. But the things that you remember, the emotions, the things that you have gone through that you remember were either very positive or very, very negative. And there's one dimension of our stewardship that we never hardly hear much about. It is the memory, this memory management. Most of us keep a strong record of negative things in our memory, even over good things. Most of us keep a strong memory about things that are negative. We keep a memory of wrongs done to us. Can I tell you that you need to delete those out of your computer? What computer? Your mind. Your mind's an amazing computer. It remembers everything. It remembers everything. That's why when people have near-death experiences, they remember things they never even thought of. They forgot about it a long time ago. But your mind. So instead of keeping wrongs, forget them. What you need to do is create a mental folder. A mental folder where you cut and paste the blessings of God and put the things in there that are good and remember those. Put the bad things in the trash and push delete. The great Irish poet George Russell wrote this: "In ancient shadows and twilights, where childhood has strayed, the world's great sorrows were born and its heroes were made. In the lost boyhood, Judas betrayed Christ." What's the poet saying? See, Judas didn't decide to betray Jesus as an adult. The seeds of betrayal were planted in him as a child. It just didn't always, all of a sudden, surface to the surface in adulthood. It was there in his childhood. Many things that happened to you as a child are still with you right now. All of us remember childhood. But see, God's got to come into the equation. God's got to help us. God's got to help us. Because difficult childhoods produce some of the strongest people I know, including King David. King David, poor guy. King David was a punching bag for his older brothers. In fact, they're still punching on him when David comes to the valley of Elah. They're still making fun of him in the valley of Elah before he goes to fight the giant. His dad didn't even include him in the lineup. When Samuel is going to pray for the sons of Jesse, David wasn't even included. That had to hurt. That had to hurt when his dad didn't even include him in the lineup. David had to overcome a bad childhood to become the great man of God that he was going to become. Don't let your childhood hold you down from being the man or the woman you need to be for God. We want to be victorious. If David could overcome his past and go on to have victory after victory, why can't we? Why can't we? David welcomed the challenge. He loved being underestimated. He loved that he had less potential that others saw in him, the more he wanted God to prove them wrong. Have you ever asked God to prove wrong your opponents? You never have? I must be the Lone Ranger here then. I love it when people underestimate us. And they do all the time. Oh, that's just the rock. That's just the rock. You know, those folks are just a little slow, just a little simple. I've heard it said so many times. You know, I love that. Go ahead and underestimate us. Because sitting in this congregation tonight are giant killers. Sitting in this congregation tonight are people that are strong and victorious. Sitting in this place tonight are some of the greatest men and women that I've ever known. We'll prove them wrong with the help of God. I don't know what difficulty you've endured, but they don't have to define you if you let them refine you. That's the choice. Define or redefine. If you let them redefine you, God will actually use those negative experiences to redefine you. Negative influences don't have to destroy you. It can just redefine you. Let's talk about imagination for just a few moments here tonight. There's two types of imagination. There is the pre-imagination or pre-imaginings. That is imagining the future before it happens, which children are very good at that. Adults, not so much so. But children are very good at that. And then there's also the post-imaginings. This is reimagining the past after it happens. Post-imagining is the gift that we need to steward. Why? As we get older, we tend to inflate how good we are. And we tend to put this romantic flair on all the events in our life. In other words, as we get older, we have a way of kind of interpreting things as they really didn't happen. Happens all the time. Example, man, you don't know how many guys I beat out of getting that job at work. We do it all the time. I mean, I had to beat out 500 applications. We do it. We do it. And we over-exaggerate how good we are. Can I say there's none good among us except Christ and Him crucified? But our imaginings, oh my, our post-imaginings, they get to us every time. We need to steward that. We need to manage that. I say we need to manage our past memories because they have a major bearing on how you view the future. Our memories either empower us to live by faith or imprison us to live by fear. It's so important that you see the past through God's eyes. The older you get, the more important it is to manage your memories, simply because you have more of them. Very important. How do you manage your memories? Will determine, number one, how you see life, number two, how we see ourselves, and number three, how we see the future. The importance of memory management cannot be overstated. When's the last time you heard a preacher say you've got to manage your memory? Oh, I must be hitting on the right note here. You got to manage those memories. Yet, most saints don't even give that a second thought. Let me illustrate. You need to manage your memories. Here's the reason why. Yesterday, I walked through Orchard Supply. See, I got to manage memories. I'm an old guy. I've got a lot of memories. And I walked down the aisle of Orchard Supply, and tears started coming to my eyes. Why? Because I remember walking with Mindy as a girl through that same store. I remember walking with Heidi through that same store as a child. I remember walking with Kate Ashley. I remember walking with Richard. I remember trying to contain Richard in the Orchard Supply. And memories flood back. In order for you not to become a sentimental old person, you have to manage your memories. See, if I don't, every time I walk through the store, I start crying. That was yesterday. I'm studying for my lesson tonight. I'm thinking, man, I got to stop crying walking through Orchard Supply. You got to manage those memories. Manage them. Mismanaged memories can literally obliterate your mental mind. They can handicap you. If you don't manage your memories, they can handicap you. Hear me. If you don't manage your memories, it can handicap you spiritually. Get rid of the bad. Remember the good. Get rid of the things that hurt you. Get rid of those memories and start thinking about the things and the times that you were blessed. Some people never rise to their spiritual capacity because they can't manage their memories. people that hold grudges usually can't manage their memory. You shouldn't hold grudges. Why do you? Because you keep an active memory list of how that person wronged you. And I'm not undermining, I'm not making light of the fact that they did some horrible things to you. But why are you crucifying and killing yourself by remembering those things? Wow, you're getting quiet. Must be on the right track here. We tend to think of stewardship in the terms of time, talent, and treasure. And that's what you have to manage, is your time. You have to manage your talent, and you have to manage your money. Those are things you have to manage, but we never think about stewardship in light of managing the mind that God gave us. Wow, you're quiet tonight. What's the solution then? The solution is post-imagining. Remember, that is reimagining the past after it happens. You should see the past in light of God's eyes. Point in case. We go to God all the time and say, God, would you forgive me of that problem? God says, what problem? Well, you say, you know that problem I had back in 1983? And God said, I have no memory of the problem you did in 1983. Why? Because when God forgives you of a sin or a problem, he has holy amnesia. He can't remember the past, unlike us. What David is doing when he writes the Psalms is David is post-imagining the experiences of his life, and he's setting them to music. When he writes the Psalms, that's what he's doing. He is searching for reasons why. He is looking for this providence of God in the midst of pain. Read his Psalms. Read his songs. He's post-imagining. He's putting God in the equation to help him get through the past. The only way you'll get through the past problems, is seeing your past problems in the light of God, how God sees them. So life symbols are about seeing the purpose of God in our past experiences. God gifts us with three kinds of sight: hindsight, insight, and foresight. Hindsight is looking backwards. Insight is looking inward. And foresight is looking forward. You got to realize what a masterpiece you really are. You have to see the purpose of God in your past experiences. The past is not circumstantial. The past is providential. Romans chapter 8, verses 28 through 29. We know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. For those God foreordained, he also predestinated to be formed to the likeness of his Son. That is post-imagining. It is the plan of God being played out in our life. It doesn't always make sense. The plan of God doesn't always make sense. The bad things that happen to us don't always make sense. Oh. The ultimate objective of every circumstance is the cultivation of the character of Christ in us. That's why the worst circumstances can double as the best circumstances, because they help us identify with the suffering of Christ. And it's those life lessons we learn from the worst circumstances that make us and make for us the best life symbols. God can redeem those past experiences. Digging into your past, I know, it can be emotionally exhausting. It can be very exhausting. But remember this, your destiny is hidden there. Pray for the spirit of revelation as you look at your past. Hallelujah. Boy, it makes them all cry, don't it? It's up to you. You can't change the past, but you can learn from it. And that's how you change the future. We all need holy hindsight to see the purpose of God in our past. I close with the illustration of Corrie ten Boom. Corrie ten Boom was a Dutch Christian, along with her father and family. They were members of a family that helped many Jews escape the Nazi Holocaust during World War II. They were caught, and the whole ten Boom family was imprisoned for it. Her father, her sister died in the camps, the concentration camps. Corrie survived. In 1975, her life was made into a movie called The Hiding Place. And it was in that movie that many people saw the true Corrie ten Boom. And so for many years, she traveled extensively throughout the world, throughout the United States. She was sharing her experiences. And so she would often speak with her head down, as if she was looking at her notes. But when she would speak, she was actually doing needlework. As she spoke, looking down, she was doing fine needlework with her hands. At the end of her talks, she would always hold up the needlework that she'd been working on, and she would first of all reveal the backside of the needlework, which looked like a collage of just colors and didn't really make much sense. It didn't look like it amounted to much. She said, this is how most of us see our lives. The colors, the fiber, the experiences, they don't, to us, they don't look like much sense. But then she would always turn the needlework around, and she would show the needlework to the audience, and it was a beautiful, beautiful needlepoint work that was done beautifully. And she would say, this is how God sees our lives. We see our lives as hurts, experiences, bad situations, but God sees it as a beauty. He sees us as refining us and making us the person we need to be. Don't ever complain about your problems. Don't ever complain about what you're going through, because it's the hand of God that is working on your life to make you into the person you need to be. Remember, the end result is for you to be able to have a life symbol that you can point back to and say, if it had not been for God in this spot right here, I would not be here tonight. I'm telling you, God is a great God. He's a powerful God. He's a good God. I don't care where you're at. You could say, I'm in a bad situation right now. Can I tell you, God's in it? Somehow the hand of God is weaving every pain, every sorrow, everything you're going through right now. The hand of God is weaving it. Don't slap his hand away. Don't ask him to quit. Just ask him to reveal to you what he's trying to make out of your life. Stand with me, please. Stand with me, please. The altar is open. It is open for people that want to look at their life tonight and see it as God sees it. The altar is open for those that need a life symbol, that need a spiritual victory. The altar is open tonight for someone to be healed, someone to be filled, someone to be changed, someone to be rearranged. God's here in the house, in the house tonight. He's here to do a work. Are there those who would want to come and join these that are already here and say, God, I don't understand what's going on in my life. I don't know what's happening, but I trust you. I trust you, Lord.